Hello, Happy New Year and welcome to the latest Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo. I'm your host Joe Rimmer and today I'm joined by Ian Doyle. How are we, Ian?
Hello, Happy Joseph. How are you?
I'm alright.
Are you all 2024-ish?
I'm ready for 2024, yeah. Yeah, I am.
Only another 364 days to go. 5. Yeah. Leap year.
Yeah, I didn't love 2023, but I think 2024 is going to be a good year.
Let's hope so.
How about you, Theo? Are you positive for 2024?
Better than 2023. So certainly started well, hasn't it, last night, which I'm sure we're about to get into.
Yeah, we certainly are. It was there's a lot to get into, isn't there, Ian? There was a lot to get into. It was a really, really good game. Certainly, I'm sure the neutrals enjoyed it. It had a bit of everything, and Liverpool won 3 points clear at the top of the Premier League, and they were pretty relentless, weren't they?
Just a bit thrown by the fact you just call me Ian. Even my dad calls me Jamie. That's the name of my brother. So
do you want me to call you Jamie for the rest of the pod?
No, I would rather not have that. Thank you very much. Yes, it was an interesting evening. The thing is that it was funny enough, walking away from the ground, I was talking to Paul Gorst, our colleague, and Carl Markham from the Press Association. And no, it wasn't. It was David Lynch, sorry. It was David Lynch.
Hi, Carl.
Not hi, Carl. No, hi, Carl. And we were discussing, I mentioned the fact that that's the kind of game where if Liverpool do end up doing something this season in the Premier League worthwhile, that's one that will get replayed quite a lot when they show the highlights, because it's one of those evenings where quite a lot happened, as you mentioned. We will get into the bits and nuts and bolts of it all in a bit, but just generally speaking, to get a win in a game where there was a slight period where you thought, oh no, this is going to turn into one of those nights, but it ended up becoming one of those nights where the fans will remember it, and anybody who's there, Newcastle will remember it. They played their part in the game, even though they probably shouldn't have, for being honest. I mean, Liverpool going forward were, very, very good in patches. I mean, they had decent chances without being brilliant chances. But having said that, you looked at the XG, which, we don't always go in for these kind of basically made up statistics. But whether you like it or not, Liverpool had the highest XG that's ever been in a Premier League game that's been recorded, and they've won a game 9-0, they've won a game 7-0. Other teams have won 9-0, but Liverpool managed to get the 4 goals, one of them a penalty, and I don't think anybody could complain about the result, not even Jason Tindall.
No, he was prowling the touchline. I thought there was a rule where both, like more than one person of the coaching team.
I think he's exempt. He's exempt from everything. Although I do think that you be the one to try and tell him to sit down. He just seems to he's a law unto himself.
In his head, he's the manager. Yeah. Eddie Howe's the assistant there.
Well, there is that, and also, has anybody seen the Jason Tindall video where he wishes a Merry Christmas? Have you not seen that one? No. Okay, well, I will not ruin it for you then. You've seen it, haven't you? Yeah. Worth checking that out.
Good. I certainly will. Yeah, Theo. I mean, Dory's just hinted at it then, but Anfield was alive last night. There was fury, frustration, celebration, a little bit of dancing at the end, but was that because, as Doyle mentioned, going in at half-time at 0-0, some big chances created, some big chances missed, a penalty missed. Was there slight fear that it could turn into another Man United game?
Yeah, I think there was a fear that it could, like if Liverpool were rushing it, they weren't creating clear-cut chances, then there is that fear that it is going to go one way. But when you look at the chances they did create, with the XG being so high, Dubravka making so many good saves, they felt like they were in more control of it, and they'll have learnt their lesson from that United game, and that's what we saw. And this is a Liverpool side now that they've got all 5 forwards back. Granted, for a month it's only going to be that one night, but they've got that strength and depth, and we can see the players now coming back from injury. It's making a difference. Like, you just wish Jota had been fit for that United game, for that Arsenal game. Absolutely, some of those, he'd have made a massive difference. But then the atmosphere has been incredible the last few games. Since Jurgen Klopp challenged the fans, they've certainly risen to it, and maybe it's also helping the fact that Liverpool have almost accidentally turned into proper, genuine title contenders at the moment. And they've got this lead built. They can just keep on picking up the points. Then the fans are going to have to keep creating this atmosphere to keep making it such an intimidating place to go to make the difference. They've had chances where they missed out on a title by a point. You don't want that to be the case this year. You don't want to be if only we'd scored one of our chances against United or Arsenal. You want to look back on the games like Newcastle where you have made it count. You're just hoping they're not using up all these chances, that we are still going to have one of those games where everything goes in, where it is another 7-0 against a Manchester United or something like that. But it's just a great night for Liverpool, and it's only when you look back at it you realise how good they really were, when you've got the benefit of hindsight, when they have scored 4 goals, they have got the 3 points, as opposed to a frustrating first half.
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about the XG before, Doyle. I remember first when Klopp first took over, and I mentioned it to you guys in the office before. I was desperately searching to try and find this quote. So if anyone is listening and can find it, please send it to me, because I am interested to find it. But I remember Klopp saying early doors that he wanted opponents to just hate playing Liverpool. It to be the worst 90 minutes of the season.
Yeah, he did say he said it a few times. He said to be the most uncomfortable opponents. I think it was, and that's kind of what Liverpool are. I mean, you mentioned it as well because you went and sat in the crowd, didn't you? You're in the crowd quite near to the pitch, weren't you? And you were taken aback by just how intense Liverpool actually are.
But yeah, I was gonna talk about that later when I talked about Salah. But yeah, I was on the 5th row last night, and don't often sit that low down. Usually sit in the upper main stand or upper Anfield Road, and upper Centenary, King Kenny. Getting confused by some of the stands, but yeah, I usually sit higher up.
There's the stand opposite the main stand. Yes, that one. And I sat in row 5, and it's been a long time. Actually, the last time I sat that low down was the Northampton Town defeat. So it's been a while since I sat there, and just seeing on the touchline the pace, the fitness, the relentlessness. We'll talk about Salah in a bit.
What was it all like against Northampton in comparison?
Yeah, it was funny enough. The weather was quite similar, but the mood and the result was quite different. But yeah, I mean, it was Klopp said, doesn't he? He said that quote that I mentioned before, but also, he said on Sky Sports that no playmaker is as good as counter pressing, and I thought that was Liverpool at their best last night. Like you said, against United, they weren't rushing things last night. They just kept recycling it, kept getting it back, kept putting Newcastle under pressure, and eventually it told. And
the example you were going to mention before, actually, well, I was going to mention before, sorry, is when you mentioned about composure, not rushing it. 2 of the goals, they walked the ball into the net. Yeah, which is, you can only do that if you are playing at a very composed level. And again, I suspect we're going to get onto Curtis Jones in a bit as well, but he's somebody who's brought that in when he plays. One of the criticisms that he had of him is that he held onto the ball too long at times, but now he seems to be able to know when you do that and when you don't. So when it's needed, he gets hold of the ball, kind of calms things down a bit, and then when he needs to get forward, he's able to do that. And I think that's something that Ryan Gravenberch hasn't quite learned just yet. Yeah. Which he started very well when he came into Liverpool, but certainly the last 5 or 6 weeks he's kind of dropped off a bit. But he's only 21, so he'll learn over time. And Curtis has learned that, and he's probably the best player over the full 90. I know I gave Jota man of the match for his contribution from the bench, but it's always a bit easier to do that over a shorter period of time. But Curtis was very, very good, and he does bring that kind of that composure, and also, he's bringing goals as well. He got 2, didn't he, against West Ham? They had a lot of shots against Newcastle, but it was the one where he just, as you say, just in the right place to tap it in. And I think overall, it's that. So as Theo mentioned, they learnt from the Man United game because they didn't rush things when things weren't going possibly their way. They missed a penalty, didn't they? It's easy to forget that. And we've seen in the past when teams miss penalties, they can kind of fall apart. That's even happened with Liverpool, hasn't it? At Bournemouth last year, but. It was last year, yeah, last year. So I think looking at it from that point of view, I mean, you mentioned the relentlessness. If you've got the relentlessness and the counter-pressing, and then you're able to, when you get on the ball, choose the right passes, which they ended up doing with the 2 goals where they walked it in. Even the, I'm trying to think what the other goal, even when Jota goes through for the penalty, it's a great pass by McAllister, who showed the time. Everyone would have just gone, right, I'm just going to clear this or pass to the nearest player, but he went, no, hang on, I'm going to have a look up here. And he was able to put it through. So that was a bit of counter-pressing and a bit of playmaking, that particular instance. Yeah,
I feel, Theo, there's a lot of players at Liverpool who are growing in influence. I mean, we'll come on to Jones in more detail, Endo's another. But certainly, obviously, Van Dijk was always a sort of a leader, wasn't he? And he's now officially the captain. But also, I think Trent is really stepping up. And I thought last night he was very good. I know Anthony Gordon got the better of him for the goal, but then that can happen. But I thought his passing was really good. I thought his aggression was good. Did he impress you last night?
Yeah, but in the sense that he's been impressive for a while now. I think it's since November international break. He's certainly stepped up a level. He's getting goals and assists, and he's probably a player who's benefited from having Endo alongside him and his other teammates, who the new ones especially, who are finding their roles in the team, so he can come to terms with his own position in a bit more. He knows how important he is to this team, and you just want him to get that new contract sorted sooner rather than later this year. He's been part of this side that has won everything for so long now, but now he's coming into those peak years. He's the vice captain. He is probably going to be the next Liverpool captain when Van Dijk calls it a day. And, he's going to be this talisman for long years to come. So he is going to lead from example. Like, there was a time in that game where he lost his head a bit and he needed to pull away.
Yeah.
But he still had the leadership there to stand up for his teammates and to have that voice. And I think he was one who was pulling Virgil van Dijk away when Van Dijk lost his head.
Yeah.
Like, they are leading by example, and that's what they needed when they lost Henderson, when they lost Milner, Fabinho, all these players that have been such a big part of it. You look to the younger generation to step up, and Trent's certainly doing that, and I think Curtis Jones is to an extent as well. Like, he's obviously that bit younger, but then they're passing on the baton, and that's what you needed.
Yeah,
I give Trent a 6.
Did you give Trent a 6?
Yeah.
It's interesting because I just thought, I get that he didn't exactly catch the eye, and he's playing. I feel like we're seeing a little bit less of him. He still moves into midfield, but a little bit less. He seems to pick up the ball more back in more of a traditional right back role again.
I think he had a few problems first half defensively up against Joey Linton.
Yeah, well, I'm so far away from me because
he did have a few issues, only for a little bit, but it was enough. It was enough for me to notice. Let's put it that way. Right. And then in the second half, obviously, there was one or two times where Gordon got the better of him instead for the goal. Although, weirdly, I did think it was a bit weird in the second half. Certainly the last 10 minutes where Liverpool just went, we're just going to keep putting everybody up forward. It's like, well, just help Trent out a little bit here.
Yeah.
I know they saw it out in the end quite comfortably, but they could have made it a little bit easier for themselves with a little bit better, I think, game management. But then maybe that was the tactics, to be honest. Maybe you saw with Forest when they won. I think Alan Shearer made a big deal of it on Match of the Day, didn't he?
Yeah.
I seem to remember that. I seem to remember it was only a few days ago. That they got him behind the left back, and of course that's what Liverpool were doing quite a lot of, and that's the area that they got 1, 2, 3 of the goals. Yeah, well, that it all came really from Salah, didn't it? And as I mentioned before, being so low down and being sort of level with Salah, we were in a great position because all the goals came from that side, and you could constantly see Salah running at him. I mean, our producer Ian over there, hi Ian, said to me the other day, he's not someone, Salah, who necessarily looks that pretty with the ball. I don't think he's someone that looks highly technical, but only seeing him at that level shows like the relentless nature. He's so strong. He's constantly showing for it. He's constantly involved. He was constantly running at poor Dan Burn, who got substituted but looked like he was on the verge of passing out. He did do a step over in the first half, which was noted. No. Klopp. Salah. Yeah, Klopp probably did. Klopp probably did. Yeah, but Salah. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so it's incredible to watch him, but it just wore Newcastle down. And I thought, like you said, Shearer in Match of the Day pointing out that the space behind Newcastle, they sat very, very deep, just on the edge of their 18-yard box. So for Salah to keep running at them the way they did and find the little spaces in behind them, I thought was really impressive. And yeah, I think they just wore Newcastle down, and certainly he did, didn't he? Yeah, I would say that. I mean, again, it's like Salah. It was interesting because when he missed the penalty, he kind of, I wouldn't say he lost his head for a bit, but it certainly affected him for a little while. But, he made a big deal after the game, didn't he, where he said, look, I changed my boots at half-time. And he says it just helped me mentally to think, I can do something a bit different. And what was it, within a couple of minutes he'd scored. He did that great assist for Gakpo, and he tucked away the penalty at the end. He should have had an assist as well for it was almost carbon copy of his opener for Nunez, but for a good save. That's right.
He got the pre-assist, didn't he? For
is that now a thing? Are we calling that now?
To be fair, that again, pre-assist isn't one of those ones that you want to. But that was a true pre-assist because it was a great ball into Jota, who then squared it, didn't it? So I think on this occasion it certainly.
We're calling it a hockey assist, is it?
Not a hockey assist. I'm not calling it that.
No.
Pre-assist is
what kind of hockey is it? Is it ice hockey or normal hockey? I don't know. Neither do I. Theo, you'll know.
Why will I know?
You tend to know most of these.
So
things.
I look like a hockey player.
Anyway.
Where were we?
We were talking about Salah. Yeah, and the thing is that, I mentioned it, I did the analysis piece, and I mentioned the fact that there's some people who think, Salah's not that influential to Liverpool. It's like, well, yeah, he is. People are mad. He's quite clearly the best player, and he has been probably since the time that he first joined. So, Liverpool are going to miss it. It's as simple as that. But, interestingly, Liverpool have never lost a Premier League game in which he's not played since he joined. And there's only been 10 of them, which just also underlines just how often he's fit, and his levels of fitness now. He always makes himself available, and that I mean, how many games did he actually miss through injury? He had the concussion, didn't he, when he got it against Newcastle once? And I think almost every other game he's missed has been through international duty or just been given a bit of a rest, which he needs every now and again. But this is in the Premier League, by the way, not the cup games.
He's not even going to miss that many now, is he? Bournemouth, Chelsea.
It depends how Egypt do. I think we're
Arsenal.
expecting them to do quite well, so he could miss 4. But they are. Was it 4 or 3? It's 4, isn't it? Yeah.
He could miss Burnley, can that like clashes when he comes back.
They're going to be tricky games, but Liverpool have shown in the past that they can cope without him, although they're obviously better with him. And now we mentioned before that Jota's back. Suddenly they've got, Elliott's been playing out there on the right, although the fact that Szoboszlai might be injured, that might hamper things a little bit there in terms of availability. He might be needed in midfield, but Liverpool can get through it, but they're a lot better with him.
Yeah. What did you make of the rest of the front line, Theo? Because before we speak Jota, I think Doyle, you gave him a 9, and I think it was well deserved. He had a brilliant cameo, but obviously Nunez missed a couple of big chances, one of which he created for himself. Showed great composure to set up the goal when it came to him, and I thought he'll have a shot here, and he didn't. But again, this still feels like a bit of a wastefulness there. Diaz won the penalty. I thought was sort of okay in the first half, but then in the second half you can see why he plays almost all the time when he's fit, because they just kept giving him the ball, and again, like Salah does on the opposite side, he just seems to pin Newcastle in, or any team that they play, and keep going at them. But what did you make of them? And the subs worked as well, didn't they?
I think that's the best we've seen from Diaz for a while. Like, he's obviously not had the best time the last few months for obvious reasons, but this was a game where he could just get his head down, run at defenders, and he was causing them so many problems. Like, it's his pass, isn't it, that plays to the first goal, picking out Nunez to square it to Salah, and he just seemed to do most things right. He knew when to cut in, he knew when to play it off. And with Liverpool having this more of a patient approach, there were so many times when they're on like the edge of the box and they're just passing it to each other, picking their moments, and he was a big part of that, whether it was playing it into Endo or Jones, getting it back and breaking them apart. And you want to see him taking on defenders. There was one Cruyff turn he did in the second half where he just left 2 men for dead, got into the box. He was just, that's what you want to see from Luis Diaz. I know there's that criticism that he doesn't get enough goals, he doesn't get enough assists, but when he's making things happen, he's going to be a big player for Liverpool, and that's what we saw last night. And you're hoping that he can just keep up second half of the season, because he's got some lost time to make up for. And if he can, he deserves that starting place. Now, Nunez, with the missed chances, I don't mind the missed chances when he's creating chances, when he's making things happen. Like it was against Crystal Palace when he did virtually nothing. He was just offside for basically his whole time on the pitch, it felt like. And that's when you feel criticism of him. That's when you want to see more from him, when he's not offering enough. But when he's on there, even if he's missing chances, as long as he's creating them and he's setting up things for his teammates, he's occupying the centre-backs, he is worth having in that team. And when you've got these 5 forwards, you can then just turn to the bench for the goals. Like we know when Jota is on the pitch, Jota is scoring. That is just happening these days. He is so prolific, and he's something a little bit different to everyone else. And now Gakpo, he's getting into a bit of form as well. He knows he's not starting every week, so when he does come onto the pitch, he's got to make an impact. He's got to make a goal, get a goal. And it was a clumsy finish from him, but it doesn't really matter because it still goes in the back of the net. It was a good showing from all 5 forwards, and it's just as well because with Salah now off for a month, 6 weeks, the other 4 are going to have to step up.
Yeah, Jota is certainly someone, Doyle, you feel like, I mean, we're sharing it out, but you feel like the lot of the hopes are being pinned on him to really step up. And I'm not always certain I really like Jota from the start. I think he's a great impact player, but I think he's going to have to do it from the start, isn't he? Because I feel like he didn't start last night. Maybe that's because
don't forget he's
come back from injury.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I feel like it's because they're going to need him and they're going to use him in the next sort of 4 to 5 weeks.
I mean, there's every chance he doesn't play against Arsenal. No, we've not. It's a bit early
to Arsenal, but
yeah, no, I've got to say we're going a bit early on that one because we've got another pod, haven't we, this week? We'll look ahead to the Arsenal game, but I don't necessarily think he'll play there. I think he's going to be left for probably the league games or something like that. So, the interesting thing about Jota is that he tends to. I agree. It's like there's been so many games. Obviously, I do the ratings for nearly all, and you think he's not doing anything. Then it's like, oh, he scored. You know, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of sometimes the ball just bounces off him and it goes. But he's so. If you get the right players in and around him, that's when he makes a difference because he's kind of like anybody remembers Paul Dickoff? He was known as a bit of a pest when he played for Man City, and I'd imagine playing against Jota just like, oh, just leave me alone. If you're a centre back, he's obviously a better player. No offence to Paul Dickoff, but even he'd probably admit that Jota's a better player than him. Certainly playing at a high level, but he's that kind of pest, isn't he? He's not the most technically gifted, I don't think. But look at the penalty, for example. I know there's been a lot of debate about it. Did he dive or not? And I know that somebody on the side of the camera feels as though he may have done. But the Newcastle goalkeeper, Mark Dubravka's come out and said, yeah, I touched him. And he said he was very clever with what he did. He says he just left a trailing, the insinuation is he left a trailing leg and that was that. But that's clever play. And that's what you need. And I always think with Jota, he's not like a slide player or something like that, but he is the kind of he knows how to handle himself. He knows how to get the most out of his talent, and he knows how to get the most out of a game for his team, whether that's pushing things quite to the limit or, I don't mind that, because you need players like that. There's always players like in every successful team that's like that. So I think that's the kind of thing that he brings. And also he just presses and presses and presses and presses, and that's the primary reason that Liverpool really, I think it was Pep Linders, wasn't it? He said we need to get him in when they got him in, because it wasn't a move. Well, it was a move out of the blue, wasn't it? What was it, 3.5 years ago now? Yeah,
because everyone was distracted by Thiago.
Well, that's it. Yeah, and I think it was Sarr, wasn't it, at Watford that Liverpool were looking at.
Team over,
yeah, and so when he came in, I think he went a year without scoring, didn't he? Mm-hmm. Let's be honest. And also he did have a couple of nasty injuries. The one that he had recently wasn't particularly bad in the sense that he was out for just about a month, wasn't it? But they missed him at that time. But as Theo said, they missed him against United and Arsenal. But now they're coming up with these games where he's going to make an impact. Although, as I said, I don't necessarily think he'll start against Arsenal on Sunday.
Yeah, sorry, go on to.
I was going to say, start of the season when he was still getting the goals, those were the games, Doyley's reference, where he was going missing. He wasn't doing anything for 85 minutes, and then he pops up. But in the last, half hour he's had of substitute action, we've seen him score, assist, win a penalty. It's more of a enjoyment from his performances now. He's not just going through the motions. He is making that impact. And this is him when he's had a month on the sidelines, barely been able to play, and he's had a very stop-start 18 months because of injuries with the international side with Portugal when he's coming back, and he has that lengthy drought. I think he had a lengthy assist drought at some point as well, and then he was only setting up goals. It wasn't quite happening for him when before that he'd been in the form of his life for Liverpool. Maybe now we're seeing a step back to that form in the middle of the 21-22 season, when he was first name on the team sheet pretty much in that front three before Diaz came in. Hopefully, whether he's starting or coming off on the bench, this is going to continue in the months ahead, because we've seen before in these seasons when Liverpool going for all the honours, you need your offensive players to make the difference off the bench, to come up and find the form second half of the season, and this is what we're getting hints at now.
Yeah, I think Jota, I think he's great when you've got a team under pressure and he converts that pressure into big chances, assists, goals. But I'm not so sure I like him from the start establishing that pressure, if that makes sense. I think Nunez is a very good when he's playing well at getting the ball, driving at opponents, creating chances, making good runs. Whereas Jota, when a team's tired, and like you say, Jota comes on, he's just so very good at making them pay for little mistakes, little gaps. The goalkeeper, last night running through on goal, finding those sorts of spaces. So I'm really intrigued.
It's kind of the opposite to Gakpo, isn't he? Yeah, Gakpo's a very careful, careful in possession, and that kind of thing. He's got more technical ability, but there's two completely different players, and they can both play down the middle and they can both play down the left as well. So Liverpool got quite a lot of options on those two positions in the attack. But because Salah's always played, they've never really had to have another one on the right.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. All right. Well, Curtis Jones. Let's talk Curtis Jones. Obviously, you've touched on him before. Doyle, Theo. I thought he had a funny game last night, because I thought he was very good at the start. In the middle, his presence sort of waned a little bit, and then towards the end, he was very, very good. He's a player that sort of divides opinion a little bit, but
on our desk,
certainly, yeah. I mean, actually, I wouldn't say divides opinion. There's one person that's not a Curtis Jones fan. The rest of us, I think, are sort of in the Curtis Jones fan club. But I love him, Theo. I think he always offers for the ball. He's always an outlet. He sort of gives for me, he gives that three balance, and when there's a player like Endo sort of winning it back, and Szoboszlai likes to drive with it a bit more. Curtis seems to play with his back to goal a lot. He seems to receive the ball. I just really like the balance he gives Liverpool. And last night he took that a little step further, didn't he? And really exploited Newcastle when they were on the ropes.
Yeah, he offers a bit of everything, doesn't he? And he's certainly finding a bit more consistency in his game. The fact that he is being able to do it over more of a 90-minute period and do it, string games together, getting goals, getting assists. He leads the press so well when he is the one chasing those balls down, and he's just got so much energy. But then when he's on the ball as well, he's so good at keeping it, or whether it's sticking his backside out and shocking off the challenge or just carrying it forward. He's this complete midfielder, and we've seen him for so many years coming through the academy, and he's had those levels of performance at the youth level, and you've seen the potential and you wanted him to take that next step, and that's what we're seeing now. He's players relish in having this extra responsibility in the team, and even though they spent 150 million on midfielders in the summer, he's probably, for me, the first one on the team sheet at the moment. I know you can have the debate for Szoboszlai, and we've seen him have a drop-off recently, but he just seems to be enjoying his football. He leads by example. You want him in that team. You feel a lot more confident about Liverpool being able to get a win when he is in that team, because he does bring the balance, as you said there. He complements the other options so well, and in the past we've seen the team, it's not looked like it's had that balance, whether Thiago's in there or Henderson's in there, and you've not had that offensive nature to it or the ability to do everything. He brings that when they were lacking that, especially last season.
Yeah. The interesting thing for me about Curtis is that he's kind of like an example of what it's like for a player to grow up in a very, very successful team. I mean, we've seen it at City over the last couple of years with someone like Phil Foden, for example. But with Curtis, when he made his debut, it was 17, and I can't remember where he played. Where did he play? Was he midfield?
He played either off the left of the attack, didn't he?
Well, that's when he first started. That's when he going to say.
He took the Wolves FA Cup game.
But Wolves, where Liverpool had just got to the European Cup final. When he made his first Premier League appearance, Liverpool were the European champions. When he made his first Premier League start, Liverpool were the world champions. So this is, and he's got the added pressure, or certainly the added focus of him being a local player and somebody who's been built up through the academy, where I remember watching him in the UEFA Youth League that year, I think it was 1920, where he was the best player. Even some of the opposing managers said he's the best player in the competition by miles. Then Liverpool didn't go on to win it because normally when they get to the knockout stages, a lot of the players have either gone out on loan or have moved up into the first team, which is what happened with Curtis. And by then he'd scored the goal against Everton, hadn't he? And so that was his calling card for a while. But he's a good example of a player who's not only had to grow up and adapt to playing at this high level, but has also had to change position. Because you mentioned before, he was a winger. Yeah. He was just forward. He said, I mean, I spoke to him. When was it? It was in Germany over the summer. He said, I used to just be about goals and assists. That's all I was thinking about. But now it's different. Now I'm learning from having played with these other players, and I need to get into the team. And I think it was against Norwich in the League Cup 2021 where he played defensive midfield. That's the first time we saw him in a different position, and he was saying, well, that was a bit unusual. I had to do this, that, and the other. And he's not going to get it right all the time, but he's kind of found that niche, hasn't he, on the left side of that midfield three when he came in. And I don't think it's any coincidence that Liverpool's run since he came into the team playing there, that's the start of the inverted right back playing. I think they've lost only one of the last 30 Premier League games, and we know that was the Tottenham game with everything that happened there. But he, at the end of last season, played all the games. Start of this season, he's had a few issues with injuries. Obviously, it was the red card at Tottenham, and then the impact of some of the other players who've come in. But lately now, he's kind of shown why he plays, how he's adapted to it, how the other players around him. Klopp's mentioned previously why Darwin Nunez has improved because he's got Curtis doing some of the defending for him or pushing him into certain positions, and he's obviously now starting to pop up with the goals as well, where he feels as though he's got enough confidence in his own game where he knows the times, as I mentioned before, when to get up and when to start to shoot. So I think he's a player where he's also benefited from Gravenberch coming in the sense that, again, he mentioned in the summer, he says, look, all these players are coming in, but Gravenberch hadn't been signed by that point. And this is somebody who's been signed who plays in exactly the same position that he plays in. And you could say McAllister as well, although he's kind of been converted into also a defensive midfielder. But Jones, that 40, was it 35 million for Gravenberch? And I think
rising to 40.
I think that in itself has been worth it if it's got Curtis up to even an extra level, because he's somebody who obviously, I've said for a long time he could be a Liverpool regular for years, and he's kind of proven that now.
Well, we were saying that in the summer, weren't we, when the under-21s Euros, we were saying, why are you looking at Thuram, Kone and all these midfielders when you've got Curtis Jones?
He was the best player, yeah.
And he was the best player in the tournament by far, and I think it got a little bit less backlash by the end of the tournament when he's been one of the stars there. But he's a player that's also benefited from Jurgen Klopp being at Liverpool for as many years as he has and transforming it behind the scenes. Like the fact the academy plays the exact same way all the way down. This is how a Jurgen Klopp team plays, and he's that first player to come through playing that way and schooled in that high pressing style. Like Trent, he was already in the first team in that first full season for Klopp, so he was learning on the job, whereas you've been able to do it in the academy. All these youngsters of that talent are going to come through and know what to do, and he's that first example there, leading the way for all of them.
So essentially, Tom Cavilla, if you're listening, you're wrong.
Well, it is interesting though, because I think with midfield there's always like an element of some people. I think people from midfielders always want goals, they want tackles, they want a bit of everything, and I think they don't think that midfield, especially over any other part of the pitch, is about balance. And I think for Liverpool, during those years under Klopp, when they were really, really good, they had a midfield three in Fabinho, Henderson and Wijnaldum that was perfectly balanced. They all weighed in with the odd goal at crucial times, but they all knew exactly their role.
Well, they didn't have to score, did they? Because he had the front three. And
the fullbacks.
Exactly, yeah. But things have slightly changed now, because obviously they've changed the system, and suddenly you've got Trent coming into midfield, and that is allowing some of them to get forward a bit more and get some goals. Yeah,
but I think Curtis is a good successor to Wijnaldum, also almost on that left-hand side, because he brings them balance, he brings them possession and keeping hold of the ball. And if he can add that extra layer and start getting more goals as he did last night against West Ham, then he can go up another level. So I'm really, really pleased to see him do well. And I think he's been, most of the time when he's played this season, has been great. Both West Ham games, both in the league and in the League Cup, I thought he was superb, and last night, one of his best games yet this season. So
imagine if we'd said this time last year that he's going to be one of your first names in midfield. He's going to have won an international tournament with England. You'd have laughed.
He's nowhere near the team. He
was
last year,
all the injuries, wasn't he? And they took a time to get him back in the team. They're saying because we had the Champions League games, he couldn't train properly with us. At least the patience has paid off, and now we're seeing the benefits.
If you want to know how good Curtis is, just look at the Porto Champions League game the other year where he just ran it. He had to get something like 4 assists or something ridiculous like that. I mean, that's the kind of level that he's capable of, and it just looked really easy for him, and he was playing in midfield. Yeah,
well, my response is always, if you want to look how good Curtis is, the manager selects him almost every week, and if Jurgen Klopp thinks he's that good to play in a crucial part of the pitch, then you probably should think the same, because Jurgen Klopp knows a little bit more about football than most of us. Wataru Endo, I thought as well, Doyle last night was superb. You gave him a good rating. You give him an 8.
I gave him a 7.
A 7?
7, yeah.
7.
You've basically picked the two players that Doyle gave the lowest ratings.
I gave Szoboszlai 6. I gave Gramovich 5.
Yeah, I thought he was poor.
He did do a very good ball for Salah for the chance right at the end, but obviously by then it's 4-2. I mean, going back to Endo, I think it's been strange for him, because he came in, no one expected anything, and then when he didn't do anything at the beginning, everybody was upset, and it's like, well, hang on, what did you expect? But people forget he's 30. Yeah. He's actually seen quite a lot. He's experienced quite a lot. He's played in World Cups. He's played in the Bundesliga. So really, the only thing that it needed for him was to get up to speed, and the only way he was going to do that was by playing games. And he was obviously going to have some issues. And it's interesting the amount of times Klopp substituted him at half time, certainly in the Europa League. There was a lot of games like that where he came. I say a lot of games, there's probably only 2, but it just felt like there was a lot.
It's happened 2 or 3 times, isn't it?
Yeah, so he hasn't played the full 90 that often, and he didn't play the full 90 again on Monday, but the difference there is obviously he'd done his bit by then. The other
on a booking as well. Not that suspension would have mattered at all.
He seems to have spent most of his Liverpool career on a booking and just safely negotiating his way through it.
But those sorts of players should be on a booking, though. Yeah, they should know when to commit foul.
And I think he started, is that 7 or 8 in a row? I think it was 7 in a row. And I think it's been a very long time since a outfield Liverpool player started 7 games in a row, I think. I might be completely wrong.
It was that stat, midfield,
yeah.
Was
it midfield? It was 2 of the midfielders, yeah. 2 of the midfielders, yeah. So I think, again, going back to the whole Salah thing, I think Endo will be missed, but McAllister coming back is quite timely, because while the old recency bias of Endo has been better at defensive midfield than McAllister, Liverpool did still win a load of games with McAllister playing there.
Absolutely. I just, what I liked about Hendo, they called him yesterday. What I liked about Endo was just again, the relentlessness of Liverpool yesterday, recycling the ball, getting it into the final third, putting Newcastle back under pressure, and he was just very good at picking the ball up, winning it. I thought he won some good tackles, especially.
It's his attitude. It's his attitude
that
which goes back to the thing about having the bookings in the games, and he just carries on regardless anyway.
Yeah.
That's the experience as well. He knows when he can make the fouls. Yeah. You do need to go back to what I said about Jota. You need a little bit of that devilment in your team. People are going to be clever enough to do certain things. Yeah,
and you can tell the levels wise. He's never going to be as good as a Fabinho. But he's already 30, and if he can play a role for Liverpool over, say, 18 months to 2 years, then
wasn't fine. Milner that age when they signed him on a free transfer, and look how long he lasted.
True,
He's a squad player. He's starting more games than you'd expect. He's proven his quality, making that difference in the defensive third. He's a very different holding midfielder to McAllister, but then McAllister comes in and plays that pass, and you see what he offers as well. Yeah. He's going to be a miss over these next few games, but you're kind of glad that it's not as many Premier League matches. You would rather have him going to the Emirates for that league game, not the FA Cup one. But McAllister will hopefully find his speed by then as well. But then he's coming back, and you can go between the two. You can just weigh up your opponents. When do you need to have that extra offensive body who's got a bit more patience on the ball and can pick out that killer pass, or do you need someone who's just going to recycle it and keep grinding it out until you do break through?
Yeah. If there's one player in the Liverpool squad who's going to take it to the corner flag and fall over and win a free kick, it's Endo.
Yeah,
the best tribute you could possibly have for James Milner.
Yeah, and to be honest, and before that, Haman, who was also the greatest at relieving pressure with a fall over free kick. Quick one on Szoboszlai. That will be a blow. Whenever you see a player touch his hamstring as he walks off the pitch, you think, "Oh God," because I don't remember it. I think Klopp may have actually said this earlier this season. I don't remember someone going for a scan for a hamstring injury.
Gravenberch is the only one, isn't it?
Well, Alisson was only out for a couple of games as well. He did his hamstring.
That's true, yeah. So fingers crossed it's not a good one. He did walk off, and he walked right round the pitch, and fingers crossed. But they were trying to get him off, weren't they, beforehand, and it's unlucky that they didn't get him off quite in time. Quick word on the pens. A lot of debate yesterday, and I wanted to kind of get through a pod without VAR, and I thought Gorsty, God bless him, did a good tweet yesterday when he got home. Said, "Going from Anfield and can't believe that I've kind of come online and watched the highlights, and all the debate is about 2 Liverpool penalties and VAR when Liverpool wiped the floor with Newcastle in terms of the way they played and the statistics." But
it's easier to talk about controversy than it is to talk about somebody doing something good, which applies to all forms of life.
Yeah.
Well, that's very deep.
Yeah,
well, you can have a think about it later on.
Well, I just thought they were both penalties. That was,
the first one, it's as contact, and if the referee gives it, then there's no way VAR is going to overturn it. The second one, I never at any point thought it wasn't a penalty. The interesting thing for me is that the referee did that whole thing where he just kind of looked at it.
Yeah.
He looked at it for ages, and then just went, "That's a penalty." Then we just saw the replay. I know a lot of people are saying that it wasn't a penalty, but the fact that I said before, the Newcastle goalkeeper came out and said, "Yeah, he touched me." Alan Shearer wasn't very happy, was he? But
I wonder why.
Yeah, was Gary Neville happy? I don't know. I've read some stuff. Obviously, we were at the game. I haven't heard the commentary, but there's some suggestion that he was less than enthused. He must have got some bad Christmas presents or something.
Yeah,
just United not being very well.
Yeah, but they've not been well for ages, so there's no excuse.
I didn't see the commentary, but yeah, I only watched the highlights, and on the highlights he wasn't exactly enthused, but I have been told that he was full of praise for Liverpool at other times during the match. So, but yeah, Theo, 2 penalties. That's what professional footballers do, don't they? They take the contact and they go down, and someone like Shearer might call that a dive, but it's just part of gamesmanship. It's part of the game, and if you go around the goalkeeper and he clips your feet, then how many players aren't going down?
Well, how often do you stay on your feet and then you go, "Oh, I should have gone down to try and win the penalty there"? There is contact. It takes an extra step or so. But if you're a striker and you think, "I can stay on my feet and I'm going to score here," you just score. The fact that he's gone down, there is enough there for him to make that happen. I've just done Aldo's column, and he said the only way he's going down in that situation is if he's taken the penalty. And Jota knows there's no way he's taken that penalty. So there's obviously enough contact for him to not stay on his feet. It's an awkward one when it's clipped on the ankle, trailing leg. He knows what he's doing, but it's still an easy situation for him to get the goal for himself if he felt he could. But I thought the first one was stonewall. Diaz does so well to get through so many bodies there, twisting and turning, and he basically gets taken out twice in the process, and then he goes down. He's 6 yards out. He's going to slam that home, score for himself. If you've got the goal gaping in front of you and you've got a chance to score yourself, if there's contact there, you don't go, oh, this might be a better chance of scoring. It's just what's happened. They've been fouled. They've gone to ground. 2 penalties. And there's all this debate because of VAR, and we take longer looking at it, slow it down and everything. Nah, nothing wrong with these two.
Yeah, the Jota one actually reminds me, if you remember Bramall Lane, Gerrard going around the goalkeeper.
I think that was slightly
he got
different.
A clip, but I
don't think he did. I don't think he did he?
I think he did. I always think he scuffed the shot.
I thought it was Jagielka years ago. It's not, is it? I'm getting confused here.
No, there was one where he went round the goalkeeper and he got a clip and he took a shot. So he scuffed his shot, and then Liverpool got the penalty, and Neil Warnock, in a surprise to nobody, wasn't happy about that and complained about it on the final. That was the opening day of the season, and the final day of the season he complained about it. But I remember at the time thinking, well, if he doesn't get a clip, he gets a cleaner shot away. Surely that's a foul, and yeah, I thought the same last night. He gets a clip, otherwise he goes around the goalkeeper cleanly and scores, doesn't he?
The other interesting one for me is that when Joey Linton wasn't booked, as said, and
but that was a rule that you cleared up for us.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was a rule. Yeah, they told us about it, so it was like, oh, fair enough. It wasn't so much bad officiating as I initially reported, but bad reporting.
Yeah. So there you go. Do you want to apologise?
I think I'll get a 1-match ban
to Joey Linton. yeah.
Joey Linton always sounds wrong when I say his name like that. That is, you know what I mean. I feel Joe Linton. I know it's not. It is Joey Linton, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know.
Is it?
Isn't it just Joe Linton? I thought you were joking saying Joey Linton.
No.
Joel Linton.
Joe Linton. See, I see.
He's a very.
Eddie Howe wants him to join Liverpool, doesn't he? We get those quotes sent around every so often.
Yeah. He's like a Dirk Kuyt, but without any goals. He just works and sticks himself about, doesn't he?
Imagine if the same thing happens to Darwin Nunez that happened to him. You go and spend all this money on a record signing, a striker, then realise he can't actually score that many goals, so you just make him a number 8.
Yeah.
I will give you £10 if that happens.
It's not going to happen. But I mean, that's just how ridiculous it was that he's been transformed to a midfielder. It's actually quite a good midfielder compared to a forward.
Yeah. Final thoughts then. Title race. Liverpool 3 points clear at the top. What have you made the last month, Doyle? Have they done well to get themselves in this position? Has there been a little bit of missed opportunity, or is it a case of just they've navigated the tricky period well?
Well, it's not a case of missed opportunity. They're actually in a stronger position than when they went into it. So
it could be even a stronger.
Well,
position
that could be the same for any team. You can't just go look at every single game. You could, you know what I mean? It's like look at Aston Villa. Look at Aston Villa. They drew at home with Sheffield United. Mm-hmm. Got beat at Man United when they were 2-0 up. You look at that and go, oh, that wasn't very good. But they're in second place, only 3 points off the top. I mean, the big losers are Arsenal, where I think I'm not ruling them out the title race at all. They're only 5 points behind, aren't they? And they've got to play Liverpool at home, so they'll be thinking they can get a win out of that one. And there's still just under half the season to go. So City are the ones, aren't they?
Yeah,
City are the ones. They've got Haaland, Doku, and De Bruyne to come back, so they'll be stronger. They're obviously world champions. They've I think that's distracted them for a while. Actually, I think so. Anyway, they've got an easy draw in the Champions League, so they don't have to worry about that till about April probably. So they'll just put their heads down and crack on with it. They're not as good as they were in recent seasons, but you only have to be as good as the other teams, and Liverpool aren't as good as they were 2018, 19, 19, 20, probably even 21, 22. They're a new team. City, you could argue they're making changes. They're a bit of a new team. Villa, definitely a new team, which is why I think Arsenal are the ones who've missed out. Tottenham, a new team as well. I couldn't believe Tottenham are only a point behind Arsenal, aren't they? Which is, again, they got beat at Brighton, but they tend not to draw many games at the moment. They're winning again, and
they tend to win at home.
Well, that's it. I mean, they're winning, and they're getting players back as well, because they missed quite a few players when they lost the way a little bit. So
since they won the league in, was it September?
Yes. It's funny that Arsenal won the league already, and Tottenham, and I'm sure if Liverpool fall away, because they will get some indifferent results coming, people say, well, Liverpool won the league in January, but
maybe they won it last night.
Well, that's it. Possibly.
Did a dance, didn't they?
Exactly. Yeah. So that might be the thing that they look back at, but it's only January. January, what's 2nd today? There's still an awful long way to go. I mean, come back in midway through March international break, and if they're all still up there, then we've got a great end to the season. If Liverpool are within 2 or 3 points, then they've definitely got a chance of winning the title. But for now, it's just a matter of accruing as many points as possible and seeing what happens. I sound like Klopp there, don't I? It's like, I'm in the mix zone. So what do you think, Ian? Well,
It's a pretty good assessment, I think, because it's very tight. It's tighter than we've seen for a very long time, Theo. And like, I'm 100% with Doyle. I think City will go on a run, and if Liverpool can somehow keep themselves close, that will be their opportunity, because we know of all the teams there, City are the ones that have proven time and again that if someone's going to win 10 matches in a row, it's probably going to be them, isn't it?
Yeah, City are going to do that. They're going to go on a run and be right up there. They'll finish above Arsenal and they'll be in the top two, unless Arsenal are the side that are going for the title. You know what I mean from that.
Not really, no, but continue.
Unless they don't.
Basically, what I'm saying is they will be in the top two, whether it's with Liverpool or whether it's with Arsenal. Which way that goes.
So basically, City are still the team to beat.
City is still the team to beat, definitely. And they've got De Bruyne coming back. Haaland will come back from injury. And as Doyley's just said, they can just go on a run now. They don't have to worry about the Champions League for a while. Yeah. And they've just got that strength and depth. I think they'd be more worried, or they will be more worried that it's Liverpool who have got the lead than if it's Arsenal, because with Klopp, Liverpool have done it before. They've won these trophies. Whereas Arsenal, they still need that first trophy. Like the difference winning the Champions League made to Liverpool and winning the FA Cup made to City way back when. They need that first trophy to get that taste of it, to then go and do that little bit more. But once you're in it, you just got to stay in that touching distance. They've built this lead. You don't want to throw it away with the ridiculous results that don't go your way. You've got some tough games coming up. Arsenal, Chelsea.
Bournemouth away.
Bournemouth's a tricky one. They're doing well this season. But Liverpool put themselves in a great position. And the fact that no one has really been at their best yet. You can't say any of these teams are clear favourites. You'd expect most of them to come back stronger second half of the season. Depends who comes back from injury. Like we saw second half of 21-22. That was when Liverpool were at their best, when they had basically a fully fit squad, made a good signing in Diaz, and that made a massive difference. And you think this time, that season, it was a three-horse race, wasn't it? And then the games in January sort of changed it. It looked like City were going to run away with it. Chelsea and Liverpool dropped off, but then Liverpool went on a run and took it to the last day. It's still so early, but we'll see who comes in. I don't expect Villa to last the distance. They'll get distracted by Europe. They don't have the squad strength and depth. The squad's not got the quality or the experience of the other sides. But when you've got Liverpool and Man City in there, if Arsenal can get in close, or Spurs, it's set up to be one of the best title races we've seen.
I actually think Villa will stick around for a lot longer than people think. Yeah,
maybe for a lot longer. I don't think they'll stick around till the last month of the season. I think they'll
still be within touching distance in March. Don't forget, there's not funny enough. There's not actually that many. This is the old thing where there's not many league games played in January and February because there's so many weekends with FA Cup games. So it gives that impression that these teams are hanging around longer than they actually might otherwise be. But that's good for them, then, isn't it? I mean, going back to Arsenal as well, I think the fact that they are not leading at the moment, it'll be a benefit for them, because we saw last season they led it for so long and everybody just went, it's City. But this time it could be. Who? Sorry, I've absolutely no idea who was putting the pressure on Arsenal on social media. That'd be terrible if they did that.
You're an Arsenal fan, though, aren't you?
I did have the coat for a while.
There were 7 points.
I'll try and remember mine for the weekend. Sorry, Joe.
They were 7 points clear at this time last season. Arsenal at the top of the table.
But everybody knew that City everybody knew it. And this is the interesting thing, that what are Liverpool fans thinking now? We've just spoken, or we all know Man City are coming again. They've kind of got that psychological hold, but you can only do it so many times, and no team has ever won 4 league titles. I know you've said this before, but the fact is, it's true in the whole of history. It's never happened.
But then it wouldn't surprise me if next season we're saying no team's ever won it 5 times in a row. You know, those records are there to be broken. I don't necessarily think that impacts on a team's performance. And we know when City, they get the Champions League draw, and then they'll get Huddersfield at home, Macclesfield at home, Strawberry Field at home.
I think it's more the fact that teams don't last for 4 years, do they? Yeah. Teams only have 1 or 2 years at the absolute maximum where they're at their peak, and it's whether or not City can. They've already built 2 good teams. It's whether they can build this third one now.
Well, they won't, because they'll be in the Conference North by then, won't they?
And on that bombshell.
On that bombshell, we'll leave it there. But we'll be back on Friday to look ahead to a dusty old thing called the FA Cup. And
it's better than the League Cup.
No, I'm Team League Cup now. Yeah, win League 3 games and you're basically at Wembley.
Semi-final next week. It's about
the
to
FA
get
Cup
serious.
Is better than the League Cup. The end.
We will leave it there and cut that bit out at the end.
Do not.
See you on Friday. Ta-ra.